Okay, we're going to give this a shot. This isn't exactly Deep Thoughts by Jeb for announcements like we talked about, but since we missed our meeting on Sunday, I figured this would be good just to talk about a few things for our Wednesday night small groups. This is, by the way, my third attempt at this. The first one, the camera ate the mini DV tape, and the second attempt, the lawn guy started weed eating outside my window. So this has been fun, and got the little screen looking up at me, so this is totally awkward. But like I say, we're gonna give this a shot. So, if you guys all got the email about the series that we're starting up, Living by Grace, which is really all about living graciously with others. I feel like that's something our youth group really needs to focus a lot on right now, and I hope that you guys have some really good discussions with your students about that. I realize different ones of us are at different places in regards to curriculum. Some of us have finished the Beyond Serving stuff, some have not. That's just going to happen with us being in different small groups, and that's okay. It's going to be challenging, but it's okay. Don't want you to feel like you have to hit every lesson exactly as planned and just get through a study. That's not what this is about. You need to do what is best for your group. You don't want the group to just run totally random and crazy, but you do need to address the needs of your group, and there may be times where there's just a lesson that you need to skip so that you can spend time on something else. There may be a lesson you need to spend 3 weeks on because it's hitting pretty close to home, or there's some specific things in there that you need to spend more time with, and that's fine. I would appreciate you kind of letting me know on a somewhat regular basis kind of where you are. That'll help me in planning what we're doing next, and if we as an entire high school ministry need to not plan anything new for 2 or 3 weeks so that we can spend more time talking about some of the issues in a particular study, that's fine. Just let me know. So when I email out asking, just respond back, Mickey Millhouse. That would be great. So anyway, we're starting up Living by Grace. Some of you will start this tonight. Some of you may not. But it's kind of divided into 3 big areas, which you may cover in 3 different weeks or in some other way. 1 week is about how do we, as Christians, relate to and deal with people who are obviously living in habitual sinful patterns. Obviously we all sin, but those who are living in habitual sinful patterns, whether it be some kind of sexual immorality or homosexuality or drug use or alcohol abuse, or they just use language that's inappropriate a lot, or whatever. Could be a lot of things. Dressing inappropriately or whatever. How do we deal with people like that? How do we relate to them without just being critical and judgmental? How do we build relationships that actually further the gospel and don't turn people away? Because certainly if they feel judged, they'll spend time around people that don't judge them, and that may not always be the right crowd who would lead them closer to Christ. So as Christians, we need to figure out how to do that better, I think. The second one is about just dealing with people who are different. And talking about serving others, whether it's globally or even here in the U.S., we're going to encounter people that are very different from us. Could be different religions, could be people with disabilities, could be people who are old and sick, could be Aggies, could be Twilight fans, just different people. But things that aren't sin issues, but they're just different and outside our comfort zone. And we can't be the kind of Christians that only want to be around people, or who can only be around people who are like us. How do we deal with these different types of things, and are there prejudices that we hold? That's one of the things that you probably want to talk about with your group. What prejudices do you hold? You go into an airport and you see a guy wearing a turban. What do you think? You drive through downtown Waco, and you see, a big guy that maybe looks like a gang member. Why do you think he's a gang member? Why would you make that assumption? What kind of prejudices do you hold in that regards? And, um, you know, other kinds of prejudices. Prejudices against people who are, very smart, or, or whatever. But we've got to get beyond that. So, and then the third area, which really pertains to our youth group specifically, is how do we deal with people who are not like us, in the sense that they just annoy us. They're not, maybe not different racially or significantly in beliefs or anything like that. We just don't like them. Maybe they don't live exactly the way we think they should, or maybe their families are very different, or maybe they go to a different school. Maybe they seem like they're, too good to be true, or maybe you perceive them as being self-righteous. Maybe they are self-righteous. Maybe they're jerks. Maybe they're a pain in the rear. But whatever, they just annoy us. They get under our skin. Maybe they're nerds. Maybe they're athletes and you're not. But you just don't like them. And we have to be able to live graciously with one another. We have to not be judgmental towards one another. Not just being the kind of Christians that can only be with ourselves, because that's totally destructive. The church is universal in the sense that anyone can be a part of it. Anyone from whether it be, any race, any culture, any type of personality, any interests, any sports fans, anything, geek, nerd, athlete, whatever. We can all be part of that. And we're all imperfect. We all have issues. And if we let each other get under each other's skin, if we are critical people, it's just destructive. The New Testament talks tons about division in the church and how destructive it can be, and you'll look at several passages regarding that. And the thing is that when it comes to division, when it comes to looking at other people and being resentful towards them, not liking them, and intentionally separating yourself or not being around them because they're different, that is sin. That is a heart issue that reveals immaturity, and it's got to be addressed. Romans 12:8 says, "As much as it depends on you, live at peace with all men." And the rest of the passage before that talks about living graciously with one another, and treating people the same, and we just can't let our personal likes and dislikes or our own perceptions of one another divide us, because we're believers. We have one Lord, one faith, one baptism, as Ephesians says, and we cannot be divided over silly stuff. We have to genuinely learn to care for one another. We have to look for ways to encourage one another. We have to not assume the worst of one another. We have to, where there are differences, we have to learn how to address them maturely rather than checking out or talking about those people behind their back or just avoiding them. Again, that's all a heart issue that reveals, immaturity, and we want to grow up. We want to get beyond that. We want to love those who are different from us. We want to get past those differences where we can actually work together and care for one another. So, like I said, this is a big issue in our youth group right now, and as you talk about it, there's some things that you can do besides just talking about. There's some practical things that you can do to start living this out, and for your group to start living this out. All of these will be uncomfortable to a degree, especially if people in your group are really dealing with this. But I want you to think about some of these ideas and try to implement some of them. One of the things you could do is you could intentionally pray for people in another group. Your small group could actually maybe adopt another small group where you're praying for them. Maybe you are intentionally doing something nice for them besides bringing special snacks. Maybe you send them an encouraging note. Maybe you as youth leaders, maybe you can send me some cool things that are happening in your small group, whether with a small group as a whole, or maybe you could send me some things that are happening that are cool with the individuals in that group, or maybe even some prayer needs in the group that that wouldn't break confidentiality, that then I could pass on to the other leaders, and then you other leaders could bring those up in front of your group. Hey, did you know this person was involved with this, or this person in another small group had a great game, or they got injured in a game, Nathan Blackman, and or whatever. But we could share cool things about people in the other groups, and to get in the habit of building them up and appreciating them, which is really part of what it comes down to, just appreciating people, showing grace towards them. So so those are some things that you can do. So I say, really pray about that. Talk about that with your group. How can you actively, do something cool for another small group, especially a small group that has people in it that maybe the people in your small group don't like. Because in planning for that and talking about that might just change hearts, might just change attitudes as they intentionally think about ways to help someone else, or do something kind for someone. And the thing is that it's going to be real easy when you talk about these things for it to become people in your small group saying, yeah, but this person did this to us, or this person said this about us, or this person acts this way, or this person won't do this, and come with all sorts of things. And you as leaders have got to cut that off. Because there's not a place to talk about some of those things, and if there's real issues, then you talk about how to resolve conflict and you deal with those things. But for this, you can't let your group devolve into blaming or giving excuses because of what everyone else did. This is about them. This is about every individual taking responsibility for themselves and their own attitudes and their own actions. Again, Romans 12:8. As much as it depends on you. It doesn't matter what the other person did. How can you show grace to them? They treated you bad? Maybe so. How do you respond in a mature way to that rather than in a way that makes the situation worse? These are things that we've got to deal with. So make sure they're talking about themselves, not using other people's bad actions or perceived attitudes or whatever as an excuse for their own immaturity. That we can't let that happen. Or their own judgmentalism. Again, we can't let that happen. Maybe people in another group are acting poorly. Maybe they are making bad decisions. That doesn't give you the right to just be critical of them. You still have to love them. You still have to find a way, as much as it depends on you, to live with them in peace and work with them for Christ. So, again, this is something that I think all four groups need to deal with. And hopefully when we come back together in November, first Wednesday in November, we can do some cool things as a group that will reinforce this. So, so that's kind of the lesson ideas. Again, spend as much time as you need to on this, because I don't want you to just check this off. We did this, we talked about it, move on. This isn't, even schools shouldn't do it this way, but this isn't something that you just get past and check it off. If this isn't learned, if this isn't internalized, that it will continue to hurt us badly, and the people in our group will continue to hurt one another, and we need to make sure that stops. So beyond this curriculum, just a couple of other things. Last Wednesday, Julian did a great job talking about her testimony as a compassion child and what she went through, and how God has turned her life around, and the importance of sponsoring kids. We talked about William a lot. So Christmas is coming up in less than 2 months. You want to talk about what your group might want to do for our child, William, our World Vision child. He is takes several weeks to get things over there, so we need to be talking about it now. By the end of this month, we need to have probably collected things or have written letters or stuff like that to mail it to him so that we get that done on time. So talk about in your group tonight, maybe next week, about what your group would want to do. So thanks, guys. I appreciate your ministry, and we'll see you soon.